Arbor Pilsner is another cruiser that's been highly requested to review from you guys, similar to the dinghy and tugboat. So we bought it out of pocket for a total of $159.93. So I'm mostly gonna be comparing this to the Landyachtz Dinghy throughout this video because it's pretty similar, the deck length, width, wheelbase, and price. But if you guys have any questions about the Loaded Coyote or tugboat or other cruisers compared to this, drop it in the comments below and I'll do my best to help you out. So I'm gonna start by briefly going over the specs. It's 28 3/4 inches long, 8 1/4 inches wide, a wheelbase of 15 1/4 inches, is just under 4.5 inches from the ground, and weighs about 5.4 pounds. Let's take a look at the components of this board, starting with the deck. You can see it has a subtle concave kicktail and nose, wheel wells to prevent wheel bite. Overall, I'm definitely a fan of this deck shape. It's portable and it doesn't feel uncomfortable while riding. The trucks are Paris Street 129mm TKPs. Honestly, very similar to the Dinghy Polar Bear 130mm. The one thing I will say is that it does seem like the Polar Bears are designed with more detail. If you compare both, you can see the Bears have more intricate lines and have like a hollowed out kingpin, making them overall lighter. Now, from a riding perspective, they both feel very agile, and I just don't feel like there's a massive difference. Now, the barrel and cone bushings seem pretty similar to the dinghies. Doesn't really seem like there's much innovation you can do here. One thing I will point out is that on the product page of Arbor's website, you couldn't find the durameter of the bushings. So I kind of wish that they added that. The wheels are 61mm 78A, made of their Venice formula. Now, even though they're the same hardness as the Hogs on the dinghy, these wheels on the Arbor feel much gummier. And I guess that just really comes down to the type of urethane they're using for these wheels. But there's definitely a noticeable difference when you go from the Pilsner to the dinghy, just based on the wheels. I'd say they're pretty much impossible to slide out, especially because the contact patch isn't stone grounded, so they're just a lot more stickier. We did notice that with this type of urethane compared to the Hogs, the Pilsner slowed up a lot quicker than the dinghy. The bearings are Arbor ABEC 5s, which from a riding feel perspective, I just don't notice that big of a difference when you compare them to the Spaceballs that are on the dinghy. Personally, I prefer the Spaceball bearings over these because they have the built-in spacers and washers. It really is personal preference though, but I think the majority of people that are using cruiser boards are gonna want built-ins. And then we had a bunch of questions and insights on the Pilsner submitted by you guys, which I'm gonna cover a few right now. The first one is the Pilsner compared to a dinghy or a normal board. In my opinion, I would say that the dinghy slightly outshines this board for my riding preference. But if you're someone who doesn't mind the separated bearing spacers and the gummier wheels, then this is actually a really solid cruiser. Besides the wheels, I'd say the main difference between the dinghy and Pilsner versus a normal board is the deck shape. The nose and kicktail is a lot more subtle, and it's gonna be harder to do flip tricks on. So if you're someone who wants to learn how to do flip tricks, you can do them on these type of cruiser boards, but it's not as ideal as a traditional normal skateboard. All right, moving on. The next one is, how does it work with the surf skate adapter? I'm assuming this person just means like all the surf skate adapters that we have. And I didn't get a chance to test it with this deck, but I've tested all surf skates on the dinghy, which is a very similar board. And so I think I'm qualified to answer this. I would say that the 15-inch wheelbase is gonna work, but it's not ideal. What I would probably recommend the most is picking up Carver trucks, CX, C7, or C5s. Even though that's not gonna be as aggressive for carving compared to the spring adapters, it is gonna be a lot more carvy compared to the Paris TKP setup. Bottom line, not really that ideal because you're gonna want a wider deck in my opinion, but I do think you can swing it if this is the only deck you have. All right, moving on. How does it handle at higher speeds, and or how does it deal with speed wobbles? Now, these boards really aren't meant for higher speeds, which is why we tested it just on low key streets. If you want to go fast on this, you can do it, but I would pretty much just say that it's going to be sketchy, especially because it has a short wheelbase and the wheels are very sticky. Can it be used for barefoot riding? And yeah, I definitely think you could use this for a barefoot cruiser. The spray on grip on the top is definitely low key enough where it's not going to bother you. Yeah, I think it's a solid barefoot cruiser. Who would you recommend this board to? So I would just say that if you're looking for a portable mini cruiser that's made of solid components and is a sustainability driven company, which Arbor is, then I would say for the price, can't really beat it. And the last thing that I briefly want to cover are the things that I like and dislike about the Pilsner. Starting with likes, I would say that the deck shape is really solid, really well made, subtle concave, low-key kicktail, perfect for portability. The next like I would say is that it's a sustainability driven company, which I actually wasn't really aware of before I bought it. That's really cool. Sustainability is always dope. As far as dislikes go, I would say that the bearings are probably the downfall compared to the Dinghy. Not a massive difference from a riding feel perspective. It really doesn't matter. But I would say as far as like, if you're swapping out your wheels, it's kind of just a headache if you don't have built-in spacers. And the other dislike about this board is the wheels for my riding preference. I said it in the beginning, I'd rather wheels with stone grounded contact patches, just so it's easier to speed check and control my speed if I want to go a little faster. As always, if you found value in this video at all, I would really appreciate it if you dropped a like and subscribe if you're new around here. Helps our channel out a ton. Yep, that's pretty much it. See you guys in another one later.